I've seen a lot of people rush into the cheapest gaming boxes they can find on a deal site, only to end up with a machine that sputters when you finally load a modern title. And then they wonder why their budget rig feels like a constant headache. The regret comes from the moment you plug it in and realize the CPU can't keep up, the GPU is throttling, or the storage just crawls. That's why I wanted to see if the Lenovo Legion Tower 52026 actually feels like a smarter buy instead of another false economy. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What I'm looking at here is a tower that promises an RTX 5070 Ti paired with a Ryzen 7 9800X3D, 32GB of RAM, and a full terabyte of storage, all wrapped in Lenovo's Legion styling. The headline numbers sound impressive, but the real question is whether the combination translates into a smooth day-to-day experience for the kind of gamer who actually sits down for a few hours of play, streams, or does some light content creation on the side. First off, let's talk about the setup. Unboxing the Legion Tower 5 feels like opening a small workstation rather than a typical consumer PC. The box includes the tower, a power cable, a quick start guide, and a 2-year driver support card. You'll notice the case is a matte black Eclipse finish that doesn't scream gaming, but still fits nicely on a desk alongside a 27-inch monitor. The front panel has a single power button and a subtle Legion logo, nothing flashy, which I think will appeal to people who want a serious look in a shared living space. Putting the tower together is essentially plug and play. You connect the power, attach your peripherals, and power it up. The system boots straight into Windows 11 Home, where Lenovo's Vantage software automatically detects the RTX 5070 Ti and the Ryzen 7 9800X3D, offering a quick game mode toggle that optimizes power delivery and background processes. In my testing, that toggle gave a noticeable bump about a frame per second or two in titles that are CPU bound, like Civilization VI, when you have many units on screen. It's a small, but real benefit that you wouldn't get from a bare-bones custom build unless you manually tinker with power plans. Now for the practical strengths. The RTX 5070 Ti, even though it's a newer generation, handles 1440p gaming at high settings without breaking a sweat. I ran Elden Ring on ultra settings, and the average frame rate hovered around 85 frames per second, with occasional dips into the low 70s during crowded boss phases. That's plenty for a 144Hz monitor, and the DLSS 3 support on the card helped keep those dips short. The Ryzen 7 9800X3D, with its 3DV cache technology, shines in titles that rely heavily on CPU cache, such as Starfield and Microsoft Flight Simulator. In those games, load times dropped by roughly 15% compared to a comparable non-3D cache processor. For someone who wants to jump into a game without waiting minutes for the world to load, that's a tangible win. The 32GB of DDR5 memory is another practical advantage. I tend to keep a few Discord voice channels open, a browser with multiple tabs, and my recording software running while gaming. The extra RAM prevented any noticeable stutter, and I never saw the system dip into the page file. If you're the type who streams your sessions to Twitch or records locally, that headroom can make the difference between a clean broadcast and a choppy one. Storage is a 1TB NVMe SSD that boots Windows in under 10 seconds and loads games in the low single-digit seconds. I installed Fortnite, Valorant, and Resident Evil 4 Remake back-to-back, and each launched almost instantly. The SSD also has enough space for a modest library of AAA titles, but if you plan on hoarding every new release, you'll likely need an additional drive down the line. That's a hidden trade-off. The chassis does have two 3.5-inch bays, but they are positioned behind a removable side panel that's a bit tight to reach without removing the entire side. It's not a deal-breaker, just something to be aware of if you anticipate frequent upgrades. Thermal performance is where the Legion Tower shows its design maturity. The case uses a dual-fan front intake and a single rear exhaust, coupled with a large heat pipe array that contacts both the CPU and GPU. Under a full-load stress test with Cyberpunk 2077, at 4K, the GPU stayed around 71°C while the CPU hovered near 68°C. Those numbers are well within safe limits, and the fans only ramped up to a moderate hum that was audible but not distracting. In a smaller, budget-oriented case you might hear the fans screaming, which can be a problem if you have a quiet home office. The Legion's cooling solution seems built for long sessions, not just short bursts. On the downside, the power supply is a 600W unit that's just enough for the stock configuration, but leaves little headroom if you want to overclock the GPU, or add a second SSD, and a high-end sound card. I tried a modest overclock on the RTX 5070 Ti, raising the boost clock by 100 MHz, and the power draw spiked close to the PSU's limit, causing the fans to spin up more.